We'll be talking about Mythic Bastionland, where you are a knight sworn to uphold the realm, but you are utterly expendable. Mythic Bastionland gives you amazing powers to hunt down the world's growing horrors, but the rules are designed to remind you that you are just one bad roll away from death. Here, it's all about the quest, not the longevity.
Happy Halloween.
So first starting off with just the core system, the kind of overview of the game that this is a hex crawl. So you are going to be exploring the realm. Book recommends around a 12 by 12. You can go smaller, larger, however you want to do, but it gives you all the tools you need to fill that out with incredible myths, omens, and things like that. It's pretty rules light. The actual rules themselves for the book covers like somewhere around 25 pages. It's real quick read. Uh, it is a dark fantasy setting, really Arthurian in nature. Like I said, you are playing Knights of the Realm, but there is just a little bit of darkness to the setting, just in the entities that you'll face from those myths and omens that we'll get into. But the kind of focus on the knights themselves is their glory and ambition. That's what you are striving for as a knight. You have your own personal oaths and quests that you'll be chasing. While you are a mostly mundane knight, you will have, a special ability here and there that'll make you stand out. You are mostly a mundane, mortal fighting these great mythic creatures. And the game takes place over their legacy and time. You'll have seasons passing, ages passing. Your knight, should he survive to old age, will eventually, hopefully, die peacefully, and you can take on a squire to continue the journey with your friends during the campaign. But jumping straight into the core resolution, so how things are kind of decided in the game, it is a d20 system. So you'll be using the d20 die, rolling with your virtues, which are your stats in this game. And basically, you are only rolling when there is a risk of failure as the intent of the game. It's a rulings over rules kind of thing. So if you have the time, there's nothing really at risk of being lost here. You should just be able to accomplish most tasks that are within your scope. However, rolling and failing on those, say you're pressed for time, pressed for resources, you will face a negative consequence on those failures. So those are called saves, is basically what everything is. It's a save on whatever virtue is being tested. Um, and then as far as your attacks go, so those are for like skill checks. For attacks, they always hit. You are simply rolling for damage and seeing if you do enough damage to get through their defenses. When you roll all your damage die, depending on if it's your just your weapon, you'll add your shield to that. If you are all attacking the same target in your party, everybody who is attacking that creature will roll together and you'll use the collective pool of dice to decide your damage. The highest damage dice that you roll is the damage itself. And then on all dice that are four or higher can be traded in for additional effects called gambits. And then as far as character creation goes, it's very quick and easy. First, you roll your virtues, which are vigor, clarity, and spirit. Vigor is kind of like your health. Your clarity is your kind of mental stat there, and your spirit is kind of your um, ability to affect the world around you, right? It's your sense of presence in the world. Um, by default, you roll a d12 plus a d6 for each of those stats. However, there are different starting rules depending on if you're starting as, maybe a young knight, freshly knighted, or if you've been around the realm for a long time, you have a bit more experience, you might roll with a higher stat. But by default, if you don't know, d12 and a d6. You also rolled your guard. Your guard is kind of your defensive stat that you'll start every fight with fresh, and that's just by default a d6, but again, can be higher or lower. And then you'll get to roll and choose your knight. Now, this book has a plethora of options. There are 72 knights to pick from. Now you can, of course, read through all of them, pick your favorite, whichever one fits the theme best, or if you want to just let the dice decide, it has roll tables using a d12 and a d6 to randomly roll your knight for you. And each knight comes with, equipment and property that they have, any special ability that they possess, and then a passion that they will use to restore their spirit as it is lost. And then jumping into the strengths and weakness of this system. So for strengths first, it is very thematically immersive, right? Like if you were trying to tell a tale of Knights of the Realm, this is the book to do it. Like I said, you have 72 knights to pick from. The abilities all feel great. They all tie into the knights themselves. Uh, for me, strength is a rules light system. It's very easy to kind of jump into it. There, like I said, it's just the d20 you need, a couple d8s and d6s for your weapons and things like that for rolling stats. But other than that, it is a very quick game to learn. And for the GMs, there's excellent support in there for between roll tables, how to build a realm, how to run warfare, right? Big combat. It is excellent for the GM side. There's a lot of support there, and then the content book itself, which is very rich in ideas. Every knight comes with a seer who knights them. It's also kind of paired with a myth and omen, which we'll get into a little bit, which are kind of what you'll pull from for your storylines and your quest lines and things like that. And then on every one of those cards, there's going to be, names, imagery, things like that that kind of help to inspire kind of improvisation, right? If you're coming up on an NPC, you didn't have one planned for yet, or you need to throw something in there, it's going to come with a list of kind of call names and words that fit the cards that they're attached to, like the knights and the myths and all that. And so it kind of just helps you have something to pull from on the go whenever you need to improvise something. And it's also supporting of flexible campaign lengths. I feel like it will work best with a mid-length campaign, but it does have, kind of advice for one shots and longer campaigns and things like that. But with every game, there comes weaknesses as well. So while it is thematically immersive, it is a bit restrictive, right? Like I said, if you want to play a knight, great. This game is built around playing a knight. If you want to play something more high-powered or something more magical or something more urban, this really won't be the game for that. So it is kind of limited in its scope of the kind of story you can tell. Um, for me personally too, the layout of the book, did a lot of back and forth flipping. There was a lot of times where I was kind of confused on where to find a specific rule. However, I have the PDF only version is what I kind of run and play out of. So maybe with the physical book it might be a little better, but while I have the PDFs, the layout for me was kind of lacking, but nothing too crazy. As well as the character roles are limited as well. So you do have, every knight does have a different ability and things like that. However, if you're trying to live a specific fantasy, like you want to play this roguelike character, or you want to play this high magic magician, or you want to play this kind of paladin like character, you probably will have ways to do that. However, the roles, like I said, are more limited into what is more realistic in that old school kind of sense of play where you're more mortal based. So you don't have anything crazy power wise. So again, a little bit of limitation in the roles themselves. It is very thematic, that thematically restrictive, but in a good way. But it is a bit of a weakness as well. And then initially the combat does take some getting used to. While the dice rolling process of it is not too bad, you do have things to stack on top of it, things like feats and gambits and bonuses you can add and reactions that you can take. And there's just a lot of options to have there. So in the beginning, there is a little bit of, I would almost call clunkiness to it, but I think once you get a combat or two under your belt, it all starts to flow really well. So just like that initial hump can be kind of jarring, but give it time and it will all start to make sense and flow and become super smooth to play. Right. And let's talk about the play experience. Like, what does it feel like to play on both sides of the table, the player and the GM? Um, Overall, the pacing and the tone of the game, like I said, I feel like it shines in a mid-length campaign. To me, that's anywhere from 8 to maybe high end 20 sessions, right? Uh, Under that, quick, short one, it can be good, but I don't think it gives you as much time to explore the realm, right? You do have like 12 by 12 spaces. When you start the game, you're rolling for 6 myths that you'll place in, and within those 6 myths, they'll each have their own 6 omens as well, right? So there's a lot of content to explore or things to explore in your travels here that you might just miss out on if your session amounts are short, like a short campaign. And then on the longer end of the campaign, I think it might just be hard to kind of like tie it up into that big grand story, right? Having a quote unquote BBEG, something a big bad. I don't think that plays well in this particular game. And so I think that mid length where you get to go through your myths and your omens, you get to find some cool things, explore some cool things, and then kind of put it to rest before it gets stagnant. Um, so that's how I feel it works best in that kind of experience. But there is it's very high adventure, very mythic strangeness to it. And that's just the kind of tone you get out of it. It's just kind of big and grandeur while you're this like mundane knight just trying to protect the realm from with your oaths. And then as for the player side of the experience, there is a lot to do and a lot to explore within the confines of your knight. between, like I said, your feats, which are different kind of abilities that you can use in combat, once per combat kind of thing, versus your gambits, which are trading in those damage die to, maybe bolster the damage of your move or try and get a special ability or effect out of the attacks. A lot to kind of do in combat, which I think is really fun and different for this kind of system. The knight abilities are great. While you are a mundane knight, these powers and abilities that you get are kind of like break the mold and break the rules. The book kind of lays it out for you. So you get these kind of big grand abilities that can turn the tide of a battle or anything like that. But the focus of the game and for the players is finding creative solutions to problems because like I said, you're fighting these big great myths. Like you have one based around the sun where this giant sun-like entity will come down to the realm, and you as a normal knight have to find a way to deal with that. You can certainly bash yourself against it and hope that you defeat it, but looking for those creative problems to these creative solutions to the problems is the goal of the players, and that's kind of what the player is experiencing on their side of the table. All right, and then for the GM side of it, the GM's experience, for prep is simple. Whether it's one shot or you're just prepping for the first session, they're mostly similar. For these first three steps, at least, you're preparing your hex map, 12 by 12 area. You can randomize it through the various websites or sources on the internet, or you can plan and draw it out yourself. You roll for your myths, you place where they're going to be at. You roll for your holdings or your cities, selecting one of them to be the seat of power, where if your players are established knights, that'd probably be where they start. Or if you want them to be entering the realm for the first time, you'll pick the side or the area that they will enter from. And that's mostly what you need to get through that one shot first session. You just have those myths ready, have those cities ready, have the map ready, and you're good to go. Probably like an hour or two, maybe, of prep there. Then to go further along, you have your the inspirations attached to those cards. Like I said, from the omens, the knights, the seers, they all have just kind of things that you can pull from to kind of enhance the flavor of the game. Everything will be kind of associated with them, just more things to roll on. There's spark tables is what they call them. A lot of things that you can pull from either in the moment or prep for if you want to have something already ready to go, kind of pre-rolled. You're also going to have support for traveling, exploration. You can have warfare in here. So if they have squires and armies that they'll run as part of ruling over their dominions, you'll have rules for the dominions themselves, and then for the warfare that you'll face as you try to protect and defend them. And then finally, the myths and omens themselves. So there is a myth for every night. So there are 72 myths, each with 6 omens. So these omens you will roll for in their travels, and the players will experience them in order up until they decide to specifically head out for their myth or they happen to stumble upon the myth themselves. You always want to roll with the fiction that's taking place, right? Stay in the action. So if they roll into your myth early, don't try and ignore it and just kind of play through the omens in order. Don't be afraid to break from that rule and just go straight into the myth. But you do have these 6 omens available, and these are events, encounters. They provide a cast, right? The NPCs they'll face or the monsters that they'll face. Uh, just a plethora of things to pull from and run with in the game. And there is no into the amount of stuff that you can pull from the game. It's very tool heavy system in regards to what you have available to you. So very, very GM supportive game. That's what I love most about the book is there is just so much to pull from as far as randomized tables and support like that. And the book also comes with examples of play. So they'll break down creating a character, running a combat, player death, things like that. It has examples of that in the book to help you just kind of run through those. So really, really great support, really, really great GM experience for Mythic Bastionland. And just to wrap it all up, trying to keep this one quick here. The target audience for this game, if you're fans of, the King Arthur stories, fans of knighthood, playing a knight, that Arthurian kind of setting, and even dark fantasy, when I read this, looking at the art style, reading through the rules, reading through the Myths and Opens, I get a very big Dark Souls vibe, right? If you want that dark, gothic horror fantasy setting, this is the one for you. If you love hex crawls, so just exploring a map, seeing what's hidden there, what your GM has created for you, and if you love a rules light system, like I said, really quick and snappy, even combat once you get through that initial hump, very quick, very smooth. This is the game for you, right? All those things are what's kind of packaged up in this book here. So highly recommend giving it a try. I don't really have a number attached to it, right? Because I think that what I rate is very subjective to other people, but definitely give it a chance, give it a run through, give it a one shot. It's really quick and easy to pick up, and I just love this system. I think everyone should give it a try here. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope this gave you, a hint, inspiration to jump into that. Hopefully, it matched up with our Halloween week here. It does have some of that dark fantasy, grim vibes. You can make it as grim and dark as you want it to. But I hope you enjoyed it, and hope let us know what you think about the game. If you've played it, your experience with it, any other game in this genre that also fits well with what's going on here. But until next time, keep that shield wall strong.
Happy Halloween.